Welcome. Tonight on Politics HQ, these are stories that made our headlines. Now let's tell you that the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, has announced plans for a mock voter accreditation exercise ahead of the Ondo governorship election on November 16th, 2024. Scheduled for Wednesday, November 6, 2024, the exercise will test the Bimodal Voter Accreditation System, also known as BVAS, and real-time result uploads to the INEC Result Viewing portal. It will run from 8:30 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. across 12 designated polling units in 6 LGAs. Only registered voters with permanent voters cards and that's from the selected units will participate in the mock accreditation. Now, the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission sought an adjournment on Thursday for the arraignment of former Kogi State Governor Yaya Bello and two others, pushing for the hearing to November 14th, 2024. The EFCC counsel, Rotimi Oyedepo, requested the adjournment, citing the 30-day duration of a public summons issued for the first defendant. However, defense counsel, including Joseph Daudu, objected, stating that they were ready for arraignment. Justice Mayan Ane adjourned the case to November 14th and 20 for the defendant's response to the summons and possible arraignment. Now, Governor Isent Laya of Benue State has clarified that he suspended the Attorney General and Commissioner for Justice, Mr. Bemson Minion, due to his failure to adhere to the administration's guidelines. The suspension, announced on Wednesday by the Chief Press Secretary, Taso Kula, was linked to the Attorney General's alleged involvement in a lawsuit by certain state governments seeking to ban the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission. Explaining his decision, the governor stated that he was quite disturbed and uncomfortable with the stance taken by his Attorney General and Commissioner for Justice.
Benue State has been robbed by past governments, and we're only trying to see how we can get something back to develop the state. We have been deprived of our own financial resources here in the state. So why all of a sudden my administration will get back there, to take the EFCC that is even helping the state, or the ICPC that is helping the state, to do some recovery of what is stolen from the state? We are looking for money to develop the state. So why would we go back to say that we're taking these people to the, to the court for prescription? That is not the position of Benue State. And we strongly feel that if we just let that go, lessons will not be learned here. Therefore, the Commissioner of Justice and Attorney General for the state has to pay quite dearly for this. Any person who is representing the state and you are sent out to do any meetings or to hold forth for the state must revert to the state. We have the standard by which we are working. You are not independent once you are working within the covers of the government.
Our focus tonight is on the cabinet and ministry shakeup by the President Tinubu's administration. Welcome. I am Dakpo Adigboyi. Let's get some answers. President Bola Tinubu yesterday, that's Wednesday, October 23rd, 2024, dismissed 5 ministers from his cabinet, appointed 7, and reassigned 10. This was contained in a statement by the special advisor to the president on social media, Dada Olusegun. The statement also included the renaming of the Ministry of Niger Delta Development to the Ministry of Regional Development to oversee the activities of all regional development commissions, the transfer of functions of the Ministry of Sports Development to the National Sports Commission, and the merger of the Federal Ministry of Tourism and Federal Ministry of Arts and Culture to become the Federal Ministry of Arts, Culture, Tourism and creative economy. Well, joining me, of course, to discuss this on the program tonight is Bimodal Voter. He's a public affairs analyst. He joins me physically in the studio, and virtually joining me is also Professor Kamilu Sani Fage. He's a professor, Department of Political Science, Bayero University, all the way from Kano. He joins virtually. Dr. Ambrose Igboke is the chairman for Guild of Public Affairs Analysts of Nigeria in Enugu State Chapter. He also joins virtually. Gentlemen, thank you for your time on the program.
Thank you very much.
All right. Great.
Thank you for having me on the show.
Great.
Bimodal, it's good to see you again.
It's good to see you too. I believe, of course, it's a great time. But let's get straight to it. And let me start with you, Mr. Showomi. This news, well, for many Nigerians, I would say it came as a surprise, even though for quite a number, they would say it's not much of a surprise because there has been conversations around this, weeks back, where even a committee was set up to sort of review the performance of these ministers and, of course, the ministries. Now, my question is, what do you make of this move? Do you see it as actually performance-based, or according to some, political window dressing, just to give the administration some, I call it public credence?
Well, I believe that's for me.
Yes, that's for you.
When you actually look at the reshuffle carefully, you realize that it meets the expectations of many. That's the public perception of it. And then to another section of the population, probably not too happy, thinking it has not dealt with their own concerns. And let me start with those concerns. When many people felt troubled by the increases in the tariff, and so some people, for one reason or the other, felt, oh no, they need to change the minister for power, which the president felt, no, that shouldn't be the case because it's breaking down barriers to investment in that sector. So it's actually solving a problem, not creating more problems. So, and there's also the issue of Matawale, Defense, Minister of State for Defense, who many people felt because of the allegation against him that he had links with bandits. And again, the president got the National Security Advisor to investigate that carefully, which was part of what delayed the reshufflement, and then realized that there was nothing to it, according to the security reports received by the president. So some people felt were not happy about those two particularly. Remaining in the cabinet.
So for many Nigerians, they feel that yes, list should have been broader.
Yeah, it should have been broader. But again, the president, while balancing the public, perception of performance, actually also look at complaints. So on the issue of complaints, those two were left in the cabinet because Mr. President felt they are doing exactly what he wants them to do. But in relation to others, you have a minister who is more known for controversy, more known for, no, I didn't give approval to this, I didn't give approval to that. But then, what then did you give approval to? Nothing. And as far as Mr. President is concerned, she is doing some work.
Which minister is that?
I'm referring to the Minister for Women Affairs.
Okay, Barrister Uju Kennedy.
Uju Kennedy, yeah. She is more known publicly. I'm only talking about public perception. It does not mean she has not achieved a lot, but she has not been able to communicate what she achieved directly to the public. At least there is no perception of that. She's more renowned, for controversy leading to, oh, they're using my name for this conference or that conference. No, I have nothing to do with it.
But there are also videos where she sort of, in a way, intervened in some issues that had to do with abuse in terms of women's violation and even children. Even though we know for many Nigerians, they might just call it some sort of grandstanding. But, I mean, for some Nigerians, they would say this is a woman with an intention to really maybe change things and maybe got swallowed up in the system. I
agree with you. You are referring to the Niger State incident. But again, that ended up in controversy. Ministers need to work with state government, and work with the public to achieve their goals. Where you are known for getting involved in controversy one way, needless controversy one way or the other, it ends up playing badly with the public. And I think that's what happened to that, to Barrister Uju Kennedy. Unfortunately, somebody I really like so much. But when you look at other ministers, you can't really say what exactly are they doing. Tourism. I cannot explain what the Minister for Tourism has been doing. She may have been going for conferences and putting together blueprint and trying to implement one thing or the other. I can give you a very good example of what tourism can do. Look at the flood. We can take advantage of the flood. For instance, on a year-on-year basis, we have the Oyo Dam flood, which is currently going on in Lagos. What stops the Minister for Tourism saying, look, I'm going to have to dredge the Ogun River, at the Abeokuta end, and create maybe 2,000 walkway, and then we build, hotels around those widened river and turn it into a tourist attraction. So I don't see what is wrong in thinking like that. But we have not seen, groundbreaking initiative, to exploit what people think is a disadvantage to advantage, and through that promote tourism. So for me,
what about education?
In education, again, the president made it very clear when he was campaigning. He said, listen, ASU strike will end. He's not the one to do that. That's the job of the Minister for Education. It's supposed to be responsible, to make sure that there will be no strike. And currently we're under threat of ASU strike. And for me, any minister that could not, resolve the issues around ASU, rather than resolving the issue, the minister is open, to unravel the 2009 agreement, which again will start another big problem with ASU. So for me, the president may be right
in his decision,
on the minister.
I mean, let me bring in Dr. Ambrose Igboke into the conversation. What do you make of this reshuffle? Let's talk about the ministers for now.
Well, for me, the reshuffle did not meet expectations of many Nigerians, including myself. Some weeks back, we've talked about the Orosanye report. I think that was like 3 months ago, when we extracted the Orosanye report, where the federal government says that they want to bring back the Orosanye report to say how it can be implemented. So we were hoping that the Orosanye report will actually be the yardstick, be the premise by which the president is going to reshuffle his cabinet. We're expecting a lot of measures, not this cherry picking, just one measure. So we're expecting.
But some measures happened. Some measures happened. For instance, Federal Ministry of Tourism, and that of Federal Ministry of Arts and Culture has become Federal Ministry of Arts, Culture and Tourism. So, please continue. I just thought to bring that to your attention.
And the level of measures. If you see the Orosanye report, the magnitude of measures that it was supposed to be and what the president has done, you will see that it is very, very significant for what the president has done, because the Orosanye report was very comprehensive about how we can move this country forward in terms of public spending, in terms of saving costs. I mean, the whole thing was up just like 18 ministries that we need in that report, and it was well articulated. For now, we still have a big number of ministers. Basically, I don't see what they are doing. We still have over 40 ministers. So we're hoping that if the Orosanye report was, these prescriptions we're taking, even if it's not all, but to a very large extent, by now, I think we would have put our ministers, if not 18, but like maximum of 24. But we are still, or even half of it, if we can get half of what we have. But the president sacked 5 ministers and appointed 7. So what is the gain for public spending? So we are talking about reducing public spending, and that's so that we can, save our economy some money and all the rest. And we are still having those issues. Then, when you talk of the minister, I want to also weigh in what Bjorn has said in terms of the Minister for Power. The Minister of Power has decided to side with the capitalists, with investors, rather than with the citizens. in every country of the world, power is one of the basic necessities and provisions for the welfare of citizens for any serious government. And even in the Nigerian Constitution, it is stated that the primary responsibility of government is security and welfare of the citizens. Now, if you remove basic amenities like power and other things, and you cannot subsidize them to a very large extent, and you give it all to capitalists who are only interested in profiteering, then you are not taking care of the welfare of your citizens. So let's not even talk about this prescription by the IMF and the World Bank, because the countries that run IMF and World Bank heavily subsidize their citizens. They subsidize food, they subsidize electricity, they subsidize health. I dare to say that, even like the United States, they subsidize laziness. When you get to a particular age in America, you receive your social security, you receive fund. You see a lot of the girls giving birth without fathers because they have sessions, they receive a stipend at the end of the month. These are
Dr. Ambrose Igboke, I think we have a bit of connectivity issues with you.
In Nigeria, we are talking about those who are, legitimately working, and we are hoping that the president would have cut down public spending. But for now, what you see is just it's too cosmetic to have any serious significant change. Someone like the power minister should not have been there because he has failed woefully. The cost of energy has skyrocketed. Okay. Cost of electricity from where he received it. So I don't see why he should be retired openly.
Okay.
Openly.
Dr. Ambrose, Igboke, let me leave you for a moment. I know you have a lot to say, but let me bring in Professor Kamilu Sani Fage. He's a professor, Department of Political Science, Bayero University. What do you make of this? Is this just some, in the words of Dr. Ambrose Igboke, is this just cosmetic, or is there substance, in this reshuffle?
Yeah, to me, I think I will agree with Dr. Andrew that it is a cosmetic change, just a means of, showing that something is being done. Because if one is to see the essence of a cabinet reshuffle, it is to rejig the cabinet, because the cabinet is the engine room of any government. Okay, so whether performance or character of the ministers is at stake when you are trying to reshuffle the cabinet. Now, what we have, one, if you taking out 5 and bringing out 7, literally is adding 2 more on the ministerial list. Already the government in history has the largest ministers in our own political history with 48. Now when you add, we are going to have 50 in simple arithmetic. And that is contrary to the Oresenye, report.
Professor Kamilu, I'm sorry to interrupt, but the same government has said that, through spokespersons, that the reason why it has a large cabinet borders largely around competence. And given the complexity of the nation, you need competent hands, irrespective of the number, to handle competent problems. So, looking at that in that context, wouldn't you also want to say maybe there's some credence to this?
No, there isn't at all. It's just to justify, the reason for it. After all, if you look at the whole problem that we have now in Nigeria, one of the reasons why we are in this economic crisis is, the too much expenses that we have, the cost of governance, is one of the reasons that we are having. And in order to maintain that cost of governance, you have to either print more money or to borrow money or increase your taxes. And that is why we are going to have this thing. We will be running into economic problem so long as we have large, a cabinet like that. If you look at all over the world, they have lean government, so that is why they perform. That is one thing. It is just political consideration that you have to repay all those who have worked for you. That is why you have such a large government. That is one thing. Secondly, look at the level of who are involved. Of all the 10 ministers that are reassigned and the 3 that are sacked, who are major ministers? They are all state ministers. And state ministers, don't even write a memo in the cabinet. They don't take any policy initiative. So you have not touched even the problems that are affecting Nigeria by just swapping the state ministers. That is a second point. The third point is we are talking of performance. Over the past 1.5 years, Nigeria is daily deteriorating into economic problem, insecurity, poverty, hunger, and unemployment. These are issues that the government should address. And none of the ministers who are directly involved in these issues are touched. So that is why we see it more like a window dressing. It's just a political gimmick, not any substantial reshufflement that will have impact. At the end of it, you will see that after the reshufflement, nothing will change. The same situation, it will be business as usual, and nothing will change despite the reshufflement.
Okay. Right now, I know that Mr. Bimodal Shomi has something to say, but we need to go on a break. When we return, we'll pick up from the conversation. Particularly, maybe we'll take a look at the Petroleum Ministry, why nothing actually did happen there. Stay with us when we return. Welcome back. This is still Politics HQ on News Central Television, and at this time we are looking at, of course, the cabinet and also ministry reshuffle that happened or was announced yesterday as part of what the current administration would say is efficiency or performance-based and a way to sort of cut the cost of governance. I still have my guest with me. Dr. Ambrose Igboke is the chairman, Guild of Public Affairs Analyst of Nigeria, Enugu State Chapter. He joins virtually. And also Professor Kamilu Sani Fage is a professor, Department of Political Science by Yale University. And Bimodal Shomi, who is with me in the studio, a public affairs analyst. Gentlemen, thank you for staying with me. Now, let me come back to Mr. Shomi, who is in the studio with me. You wanted to actually respond to some of the things that Dr. Igboke has said and also Professor Sani Fage. I would like you to respond to that. And also, in addition, many Nigerians are also asking, why was there not a reshuffle within the Petroleum Ministry? At least Nigerians know that there's the MD of the NNPC, there's also the Minister for Petroleum for State, and then we have a Petroleum Minister who, coincidentally is the President. And looking at the current situation Nigerians are going through, I mean, they expected something to happen in that ministry, but nothing happened. Before this administration, they used to get petrol. I mean, we were getting petrol at less than 200. But right now it's over 1,000 naira. And nobody has been made to, lose their jobs there. So is this not some sort of hypocrisy? I want you to add that to your response, Bimodal.
Okay. Can I say this? Ambrose is my very good friend, and I'm glad he's on this program. But he's putting the cart before the horse. When it comes to Orosai's report, you are talking about over 220 MDAs that would have to be married together. What has that got to do with reshuffling the cabinet of just a number of less than 50 people? I mean, so I don't think that is the issue in relation to reshuffling of the cabinet. It's about performance measurement, of those who are directly working with the president to implement his agenda. So it's a totally different thing from cost of governance, which Orosai's report sought to bring down, by merging 220 duplicitous agencies together so that we can now have a slimmer government. And we have had the president saying, okay, I am going to do this, and this is coming, maybe this is the next thing to be addressed. But you need to have the right people in place to implement those policies. The second issue which Professor Fage again raised is the issue of only Minister of State were dropped. That's not correct. Betta Edu was Minister for Humanitarian Affairs. That was dropped. We had Uju Kennedy again also dropped. And when you look at the areas of power, which my colleague Ambrose criticized heavily, You need to understand the situation in relation to power. You cannot continue power the way the Tinubu administrations inherited it. Otherwise, nothing will improve in this country. And I'll give you some statistics. Look, we have had our power line, you know, the electric power transmission lines, you know, were installed more than 50 years ago. They are dated, they can no longer take pressure, and you cannot expand, you know, the electricity generation without transforming, you know, replacing those old lines. Now, what the minister is trying to do is to ensure that we can be able to have the investment, since we do not have the money, you know, in that sector, so that we can not only generate, also transform. Don't forget the reasons why many major, you know, international energy companies like Siemens, General Electric, fail to get involved in the Nigerian energy market. It's simply because our target was always 10,000 megawatts, and they will not touch anything less than 20,000. And for you to understand the implication, we are currently generating 4,000 megawatts. Ghana, with a population of 40 million, is also generating 4,000 megawatts, some of it from Nigeria. Then you begin to ask yourself, are we really serious? South Africa, with a population of about 60 million, is generating 50,000 megawatts of electricity. Nigeria, with a population of over 200 million, is still generating 4,000. If you take a country of equal population, relatively, you know, Indonesia has a population similar to ours. Indonesia is generating 80,000 megawatts. And yet we have a minister who is trying to bring down the barriers for investment in that sector, and yet we still want him sacked.
How would you rate? How would you rate his performance? What scorecard would you on scorecard? What would you give him?
In spite of all the criticisms, I think he's one of the best ministers. He came out, he's bold enough and courageous enough to look at the problem in the face and say, look, we've got to solve this problem. Otherwise, we will never meet the energy requirements of Nigerians. And you need power in order to grow the industrial sector, in order to bring down the cost of living, in order to bring down the cost of food production and all that. So it's quite very important. You know, it's as important, in my view, as the oil sector.
On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the highest?
I think the minister, I will score him 7.
You score?
I will score the minister
of Power 7?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Then when you look at the main issue which you actually raised, which is in relation to the petroleum sector, that's another complex one. The Tinubu's administration came in inheriting 800,000, 1 million barrels a day. Now, we knew what happened in that sector. We don't need to go back to it. The Buhari's government had already forward sold the oil, you know, in advance. A lot of it had been sold. Over 400,000 liters a day had been sold. They've collected the money, spent it. Not until end of June next year, we will not get out of this problem. And it's from then, from July next year, that is July 2025, you can begin to see a significant improvement in things gradually, because there'll be new money locked up currently into debt by the Buhari administration that will now be liberated. Then, when you look at that sector again, we've already distributed all the onshore, you know, oil rigs, you know, to the oil wells to fellow Nigerians, leaving the deep shore, offshore, where we need significant investment. Now, who will do those investments? We do not have the resources. You need the international oil majors to go into that sector. And over the years, we left it, because we used to operate joint venture partnership with the oil majors. So what has happened is that the federal government does not have the money. So in order to make it attractive, they had to look at different ways of getting the oil majors involved. And that is the only place where we can generate extra 1 million barrels a day, you know, in order to pump up, you know, our oil production to 2.5 million barrels a day. When you produce it, you do not own it all. Don't forget the joint venture partners, like the oil majors, who own some. They might be owning 40 or 60%, and we hold. Okay. Okay.
I mean, you said you've spoken extensively. Let me come to Dr. Ambrose Igboke. Maybe, you know, he wants to react to some of the things you said. And so far, why do you also feel that should something also have happened within the oil sector, the petroleum sector?
Within what sector?
The petroleum sector.
Well, while I sympathize with the Tinubu administration for the litany of excuses given Nigerians about not being able to solve the problem, they are not excused. They came saying that they will fix Nigeria's economic problem. They gave us blueprints. They came with manifesto. They made us believe that they have the magic wand. So they can't come now and start giving us excuses. We won't buy it. These are the paradox of reason. There's no any, excuse that they can start giving Nigerians just after 1.5 years in office. That means they didn't do their visibility. That means they didn't, go down to find out the problem of Nigeria before dishing out their manifesto and making promises to Nigerians. It's very frightening that it's the same political party that was in government since 2015, and it is the same political party that succeeded the party. So that means there was no synergy in party policies. So everybody just doing his own thing. Now, at one hand, we are making excuses for government for their inactions and inefficiency, and premising it on excuses that the Buhari administration for sold oil over some years. Any serious government who is interested in fixing the problem does not complain about the past. We have seen examples. I think broader countries. You roll up your sleeves and start working. First of all, there is no concrete evidence in this government that they think is true. Most things have been knee-jerk approaches. The RPG, Economic Recovery Plan that we're talking about, we have not seen any dedicated, we have witnessed between 1999, 2007, where we have very serious economic document called, NEEDS, National Economic Empowerment Development Strategy. That was a document that was picked up and was domiciled in the States, and we're able to run with economic templates, even the, reorganization of the banking sector and all those things. Now, we have the Minister of Economic Planning come to say something else. We hear the BCBN governor making all kinds of flip-flops. For example, when the Naira was falling, he was blaming the BTCs. He will blame the different people without looking at the reasons. Firstly, let's take a look at this reason. The president on May 29, 2023, just in his inaugural speech, said subsidy is gone. We are saying subsidy is gone without putting the safety nets for Nigerians. No government behaves that way. Your citizens are your primary responsibility, not your profit. Then, when we come to subsidy is gone, 6 months down the line, you introduce subsidy through the back door around August, only to come back in November last year to admit that you have reintroduced subsidy. Who is taking the differentials between the subsidy you have reintroduced and the subsidies still have gone that we are not paying? What we are paying high for now is what we are supposed to, enjoy in subsidy. First, the working government would have made our 4 refineries function before you remove subsidy, so that the quota for local consumption is
Dr. Igboke, fast forward on this conversation, do you think heads also should have rolled within that sector?
I mean, if I may say my mind, most of, it's only like 10% of, let me say like 20%, like 8 to 10 ministers in this current administration were really working. The rest were just making up the numbers. And when we talk about the power sector, all these countries that were mentioned by my friend, they didn't get there in one day, and they didn't need to suffer their people the way we have suffered our own people tremendously. A minister that just came on that 1 year said he wants to do all the power. What of all the things that have been going on the power sector reform in the past 15 years? You think other presidents didn't know how to do it like that? It's because the citizens don't need to solve. We need to think outside the box. All right, not taxing the people.
Dr. Igboke,
can't tax our people to prosperity.
Let me leave you for a moment, please. Let me bring in Professor Sani Fage into the conversation. If at all, your reaction.
I will react on what the previous speaker said, that it's just a bunch of excuses that they are making. Now, in any situation, in any country, what you do when you dish out a public policy, you try to assess what is the impact of that public policy. Now, the previous speaker, the earlier speaker, said that the Minister of Power is, he rated him up to 70%. But look at what is happening now. How many industries are closing? as a result of this policy. And how many foreign investors are leaving, packing their things and leave Nigeria. So you cannot be deceiving yourself and think that the policy you are making, you are pursuing is giving positive result. While on the ground, this is not what is happening. Industries are closing, and the foreign investors are packing and leaving the country, and yet we are denying the fact that it is as a result of such harsh policies that we are having. Now, the other aspect, when you talk of the petroleum sector, I think that is where the health role. In the first place, in certain climes, where you have it, even the president being the minister of petroleum and given the crisis that is happening, in other places, he will say that he needs another person to take over. But yet, he refused to do anything and nothing is happening, and then we are going to continue with the same issue. The third issue that I would want to react quickly is this issue of blaming the previous government. After all, it is the same party. It is now the same party that you are counting. It spent 8 years under Buhari, and now we are 1.5 years into the party. You cannot be blaming it. And what is the position of Tinubu in that previous government? Was he not the leader of the party? Was he not the one who brought Buhari? Was he not the one who said he's going to continue with Buhari? So I think these are a bunch of excuses which are just meant, to, cushion literally the effect of the negative policies that we have. And when you look at back to the power sector, let us not forget. Within 1 week after IMF, a person said that there is need to increase the rate of electricity, it was added, it was raised within a week. So it is not Nigeria making, it is IMF making that we are following, blindly. So you cannot be making excuses and say that you read this, you read this. Actually, to me, if we are to assess the whole cabinet, I'll not even give a pass mark to 10. I think Doctor is generous. To me, there may be about 5 of them that you can count on your finger and say, these are the ones that are marginally performing. But there is a far below this because they are not, yielding the positive result. Their performance is below the expectations of Nigerians, and we have to be mindful that you cannot be beating your chest and say you are making a positive development, while when you take over, the level of poverty and hunger is this, and now we are talking of about 70 to 80% of Nigerians are suffering from multidimensional poverty, and yet we are deceiving ourselves and saying that the cabinet is performing.
Oh, all right, Professor Sani Fage, we need to go on a quick break. When we return, of course, we will be taking final thoughts on this issue. Do stay with us. Many thanks for staying with us. This is still Politics HQ on News Central Television, and we are looking at the recent cabinet and also ministry reshuffle within the Tinubu administration. I still have my guest with me, but because we are really pressed for time, let's just delve into another issue. And that also has to do with the cost of governance. Now, just about an hour ago, Bayo Ononuga, of course, the president's aide on communication, did release a statement on social media. His ex-handle, the caption, State House press release, President Tinubu issues new directives on reduction in cost of governance. Now, in that statement, he said President Tinubu has restricted ministers of state, heads of agencies of the federal government to a maximum of 3 vehicles in their official convoy. No additional vehicles will be assigned to them for movement. The cost-cutting measure was announced in this statement and signed by the president. Now, it goes back to say that in January last year, President Tinubu took significant steps to reduce government expenditure by reducing entourage on foreign trips from 50 to 20 officials for local trips, and of course it reduced it to 25 officials. And he similarly reduced the vice president's entourage. So basically, this government is saying that, look, we need money. At the same time, we empathize with Nigerians, and we need to cut costs. This is one of the moves. Now, I would like your reaction. Let me come to Biodun with me in the studio. I know you have some reactions as regards what some of the discussants have said, but I'd like you to react and also speak on this, the issue of cost of governance, preferably maybe 30 seconds or less. Okay.
Well, on the closure of industries, which Professor Fage, highlighted, look, in America, this year alone, Macy's has closed over 50 stores. In America, this year alone, they had over 500 companies that have closed down. You can fact check.
So you're saying it's not peculiar to Nigeria?
It's not peculiar to Nigeria. In the same way, in Russia, we have companies divesting from Russia as a result of the war. You have the same thing going on in Britain. In Britain, the steel industry has collapsed as a result.
But quickly, don't you think that this could have been avoided?
No, there are global issues involved in all these closures. One, you have the pandemic. The world is still smarting from it. You have the effect of the Ukraine-Russia war, which also accounts for the high cost of grains in Nigeria because we are not producing enough. And I know that for a fact that we will save $5 billion a year if we produce what we eat here, which is grain, maize, and soybean. So what is very clear is that what accounts for the closure is not the reforms being carried out in the power sector or what is going on in the oil sector. Those are not the issues. The issues are global, and many countries are smarting from it, both from advanced countries, to medium-income countries like us. Now, on the issue of cost of governance, I think this is the first time, and I stand to be challenged, that any administration will be taking head-on. I'm not a government spokesperson. I'm not a card-carrying member of any party. Looking at issues objectively, this is the first time any government will seriously begin to address the issue of cost of governance. One, you have not only the oversight report, which the president himself, don't forget, oversight report was produced in 2014 under President Jonathan's government. What was done to it? Nothing. What happened to oversight? It was actually rubbished under Buhari. And that report was kept somewhere. And Tinubu decided to now look at it. They're about to implement it, reducing, the MDAs, from over 400 and something to 200 and something. And it's not only that. Don't forget, they should have made 4,000 appointments to the MDAs. Till today, I don't think the president has made up to 1,000, appointments. In addition to what Ononuga just said, in relation to reducing the entourage.
I'm sorry. I would like to bring in Dr. Igboke to talk on this. Please, preferably 30 seconds. Your reaction, your final thoughts.
Well, it is said that a bad workman quarrels with his tools. And as it stands today, this administration is just looking for every excuse to say, justify why it has failed Nigerians. And any attempt by anybody to justify this failure is to blow in the face because the empirical evidence is there. And let me also say that you don't devalue your currency at a go. You don't float your, you remove subsidies in electricity, you remove subsidies in gas, you remove subsidies everywhere. And you have a bloated cabinet. So there is no, all these reduced trade vehicles and all this, it's just to make sure that there's news for us to talk about. The president should reduce the number of his ministers. What are 48, 50 ministers doing? It should bring them to 10, 15 or 18 ministers. If they let them be using forecasts, that's not our business. Our business and the number of ministers are too much. What are they doing? So when we get that talk, then we'll know that the government is serious. From now, the government is still engaged in profligacy. It's over-bloated economy, and it's taking too much of World Bank and IMF prescription that is causing injury to its citizens. The government should sit down and think. And the ministers, the Latin word for minister is minister, which means servants. They should know that they are servants to serve the citizens and not to serve business interests.
All right, let me bring in Professor Sani Fage. Your final thoughts.
My final thought is that the government should rethink and look at its own policies and see the side effect of such policies. And it should make the welfare of the citizen is first and main priority, not what it will save, because we are now seeing the effect of this blind followership of IMF. We are now seeing the side effect of this capitalistic approach to governance, because the government and its cahoot are saying that government is saving money. What is the purpose of saving the money when your citizens are wallowing in poverty? So the essence of government should be the welfare of the people, and that is the first thing, if you go into our constitution, that the purpose of government is to protect the welfare and well-being of Nigerians, not to save money and not to pay too much attention on infrastructural development.
All right, gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. Dr. Ambrose Igboke, Chairman, Guild of Public Affairs Analyst of Nigeria, Enugu State Chapter. Professor Kamilu Sani Fage, Professor, Department of Political Science, Bayero University, and Biodun Shomi, Public Affairs Analyst. Once again, gentlemen, thank you for your time on the program.
Thank you for having me.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Great. At this point, of course, we come to a close. In case you missed out, you can actually catch up on our YouTube platform. That's News Central TV. You have it on the screen. You can also follow us across social media with the same handle, News Central TV. You can follow me personally at Dakpo Adegboye. The opinion of our guest remains theirs and not that of News Central. Until I come your way tomorrow, good night.